What's happening, everybody? Jeff Lightsy Jr. here with the Black Boss channel. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. There's always this saying, you get paid what you're worth, or you make what you're worth. It's not what you don't get paid what you're worth. You get paid what you can negotiate. And shout out to the agents of Rudy Gobert, because they just robbed the Utah Jazz of $205 million. $205 million. That's what Rudy Gobert gets for having the league shut down and being the first player to test positive and being for COVID-19 back in March and being reckless about it. So you are going to be reckless and purposely touch everybody's equipment and doing all this stuff. Not to say there wasn't COVID already in the NBA, but he was the first player to test positive. And he's the reason that ultimately forced the shutdown that we went on to know was a global pandemic and the COVID-19 pandemic. So, but the fact that he was super reckless and super just not smart, not careful or anything. And he was the one that got it. And then he passed it to Donovan. And then obviously a bunch of players, bunch of people, millions of Americans all across the country got it and all of that, right? Like it was still, but it was very, very new and very, very fresh when the NBA shut down because they were the first sporting league to shut down. They were the first billion-dollar entity to shut down. And then obviously we saw how the rest of the country responded. But being the first guy to get diagnosed with COVID in NBA, being the first guy to get diagnosed with COVID in sports, being the guy who, was very, like I said, careless and reckless. How do you get rewarded? $205 million. You get rewarded with $205 million from that organization. To me, that's incredible. Like that is the finesse of a century. I talk about contracts a lot on this because I think we always have to put it into context, right? Rudy Gobert plays for the Utah Jazz. They have to keep their good players because free agents don't go to Utah. They have to get so that they gave Donovan Mitchell, rightly, deservedly so, $158 million or something like that earlier this offseason. And now they've maxed out Rudy. But see, here's the thing. Guys like Rudy Gobert aren't worth $205 million. Like, I get it. You have to keep your good players. But at what point? Like, at what cost do you overspend for a guy like Rudy Gobert? $205 million? $205 million? Like, am I blind? Like, did I forget the game of basketball? Like, the purpose of basketball is to put the ball in the basket and to stop the other players from scoring. So $205 million? Like, I gotta pull up Rudy's stats, guys. I gotta pull up Rudy's stats. Rudy played 68 games. He averaged 15 points last year, 15 points, 13 boards. I mean, that's good. He was an all-star. The year before, almost 16 points, 13 boards, 2 blocks. 13 points, 10 boards. 14 points, 13 boards, 2.5 blocks. But he's a career 13, 11, and 11 guy with 2 blocks. It's always consistent. Is that worth $205 million? Is it? I just saw Paul George get $200 million. Yeah, he might be worth it. I said it was a waste of money, but like for his type of talent and for what the league is going towards, wing players that can score, put the ball in the basket, 3-and-D guys, even though he's not clutch in the playoffs. But I can almost understand it in that aspect. Giannis Antetokounmpo, obviously, $228 million. I get it. It makes sense. Rudy Gobert? Like the list of guys that have gotten $200 million contracts is like Steph. It's like Steph, James Harden. I think Dame Lillard maybe. And that's about it. And now we're going to put Rudy Gobert in that. Rudy Gobert? A guy that's offensively challenged, gets all his points off rebounds. Rebound assist a souped up Dennis Rodman, a 7'3" Dennis Rodman. $200 million? I can't. There's no way for me to justify that. I get it. You're Utah. You don't get free agents. You have to keep your players. You have to overpay your players. But $200 million for Rudy Gobert just seems like suicide. I remember when when Rudy Gobert was the first person to get, him and Donovan Mitchell were the first 2 people to get diagnosed with the coronavirus. And I remember saying early, I was like, I don't know if these 2 will ever play with each other again. I could see that relationship being fractured that much. And it looked like it was headed towards that point. There were reports out of Utah that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert were not on speaking terms for the longest. But the organization kind of helped patch it up. Obviously, they ended up playing together in the bubble. They did what they did in the playoffs. They went up 3-0. but 3-1 over Denver. They were the first team to go up 3-1 over Denver. They ended up losing that series, but they played pretty well besides losing the lead to Denver. Like, it could have easily been Utah in the Western Conference Finals, I guess, theoretically, because they could have eliminated Denver and potentially beaten the Clippers, but that's not what happened. So when I said that, it's because I knew the coronavirus at the time was so new. I'm saying I made this prediction back in like April. You know, I didn't think they'd ever play with each other again, simply because the coronavirus was still new and I didn't really know much about it. But I knew that kind of thing, like him being so reckless, him being so careless, is something that could fracture a relationship. And for a while, it seemed like it did. They ended up getting back together, and the organization paid both guys hefty, might I add. They paid them pretty well. So obviously they're going to be teammates for a while. At least it looks like it. On the surface level, it looks like they will be teammates for the next 4 to 5 years. But at the same time, I think Utah is going to be stuck in a certain situation after you pay a guy like Rudy Gobert that much money, after you have a guy like Mike Conley on a $150 million contract, and when you have a guy like Donovan Mitchell. He's the only real building block to me that could potentially be on a team to win a championship. If Rudy Gobert is your second best player, if Rudy Gobert's on a $200 million contract, the team's not going to win much. It's not. And that's what's unfortunate about what's happening in Utah. Shout out to the new young owner, though. He's a really smart guy. He's really young. He's like 42 years old. He's a 42-year-old billionaire. He's kind of crazy. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on the move by Utah signing Rudy Gobert to a $205 million contract. Wow, this is incredible. Oh, once again, I'm Jeff Lightsy Jr. from the Black Boss Channel. Be sure to subscribe to the Black Boss Channel. Hit the thumbs up button. Like, share, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram because I post small snippets of different videos that may not make it to the page. Exclusive content there on my Instagram. Once again, I'm Jeff Lightsy Jr. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out. I'll see you guys next time.